welcome into the Roundtable. Bill Priestley here with you. And an interesting article came out about a month ago concerning warehouse rates and rents, and that they may be skyrocketing here over the course of the 2023 year. Joining us to talk about it is Joe Oliaro, the VP of Sales and Chief Real Estate Officer for Wagner Logistics, who also is coming out of Kansas City, Missouri. No doubt excited about what's happening this Sunday as well. I would have to assume anyway. Joe, thanks so much for joining us.
Yeah, thanks for having me out.
Absolutely. So Prologis came out with in an article that Todd Maiden wrote, which you can see here, basically said that rents were going to go up 10% in the warehouse area nationwide, 9% globally, and also adding 500 basis points to that in areas close to U.S. coasts. First question, are you surprised? Second question, is the number right?
Well, it's funny. I was just about to say I'm not surprised. Rents have been going up over the last 5-10 years on a regular basis, and I guess in my opinion, we're coming to the end of a development cycle. We're coming to a point where the cost of capital due to interest rates is so much higher, and construction costs and materials are so much higher that these developers really can't justify it any longer. So they're cutting their pipeline in half, development activity, which in of itself, there's still an incredible amount of demand for space, especially in the top 50 markets on the West Coast, Texas. You've got a lot of these markets that really want really want to bring in more development, but it's these developers are saying no, not today.
Gotcha. 10% nationwide and 9% globally. You think the numbers are right?
I think it's pretty close. Yeah, I think it. From our perspective at Wagner, we try to go out and find flexible space options, and there's always space out there. But the nice new tilt-up warehouses, the sexy buildings that you see from the interstate, the rents on those aren't going down anytime soon. And the proposals that we get from landlords, they continue to go up and up.
10% is a pretty dramatic jump no matter what industry you're in there. How much does this have to do with the fact that over the course of the past couple of years, that a lot of retailers, shippers have been dealing with a just-in-time versus just-in-case methodology, and now that, of course, with things going sparse, we went to a just-in-case mentality. Is that figuring into this at all?
Yeah, I think that the retailers got caught up during COVID, and they all wanted overflow inventory. They had been working on just-in-time inventory, and then they said, oh shoot, we've got all this excess demand. Our demand just went up by 30% because everybody's working from home now. Everybody's ordering things online. So we need to ramp up our overflow. We need to ramp up the manufacturing. We need to increase our distribution footprint, or even consider a regional supply chain model where we need to open up more space so that we can get more product to the customers more quickly. So in that respect, it's been a game changer on the warehouse side. On the front end of that, you've seen changes with some of the big box groups where they're doing fulfillment out of the or omni-channel out of the big box retail center like Walmart or Target, and then you've seen other even like mall developers and retail property owners beginning to offer fulfillment options right there on site. They'll bring in a third-party fulfillment provider that will do the fulfillment for the smaller retailers that want to occupy space in that development.
Gotcha. Yeah, I was just kind of going to delve into that area there. We were talking about retailers, especially the retailers that got caught with so much more inventory that they have to get rid of. I was recently at a home improvement store here in the area, and I believe they were selling gas grills that were perhaps still on the front porch of that store last summer. With retailers, any changes, you mentioned a couple there, any changes in strategy in terms of what they've got to do if they've got overhead, if they've got inventory they have to get rid of?
It's a closeout sale. It's, hey, let's take up less space in our back room. Let's take up a less amount of backroom space to hold inventory, and let's showcase our highest moving products, and have a fire sale for those that aren't moving. And I think that's what we've seen so far on the retail side.
So with that, let's go to like more or less the warehouse strategy of this as well, because obviously as prices go up, people are still looking for the cheaper or possibly even the cheapest option. If you're advising a warehouse, how do you gauge how much prices need to go up, and how much are you watching the entire market overall?
Well, from a third-party logistics perspective, it's all about cost. Like we are the cost mover on that end. So it's helping the customer understand what the costs are from our end, and then it's really up to them to figure out whether or not they can pass some of those costs on to the consumer. And then, we've got to be flexible and agile enough to help them keep those costs down, whether that's offering flexible space options, shared labor across a multi-customer warehouse, and shared equipment. So I think that there's a lot of different options there. It just depends on how eager that retailer or that shipper is willing to, collaborate with a partner to help them keep the costs down.
Right. So with this 10% jump, or at least forecasted, 10% jump, you're looking at a situation where it looks like this market's become just a little bit more volatile, in this case, at least with a jump like that. How do you forecast as far as what you're seeing out of warehousing, how they're going to be reacting to changes coming down the line? Do you expect to see warehousing become a little more volatile as fuel, as trucking, as maritime shipping, as all these costs have started to not necessarily be consistent, but become a little bit more unpredictable?
Yeah, I think a lot of 3PLs, speaking for the industry here, sure. I think a lot of 3PLs have learned over the last decade that you can't just own a warehouse or lease a warehouse and have a fixed rate, and then also your costs that are passed on to your customer, you need to price escalation into those costs. So you need to say, we're forecasting labor to escalate by, let me back up. So I think a lot of people were estimating labor to be 3 to 5% year over year escalating, and it's been much more than that. It's been more like 8 or 10% year over year. So a lot of logistics companies have put themselves in a bad position because they haven't been able to react or forecast that amount. So when you come back up to a renewal or something like that with a customer, you've got this huge gap that you have to cover in order to be profitable. And sometimes the customer doesn't always understand that.
Yeah. As a 3PL, as you advise and take care of shippers in terms of what they're needing in terms of moving their goods from place to place and using warehousing, as you see these costs go, is it still going to be business as usual, or do you think that as you see the freight come in and needs to be moved, are you advising them in different ways and trying to move in maybe more to a just in time, or try and keep those warehouse costs down because of the course that they're expanding as well?
Yeah, I think the focus is on continuous improvement initiatives. The focus is on, labor, transportation, and occupancy costs, which are the three main costs across the supply chain. So anything we can do to reduce the footprint that our customer occupies while maintaining their volumes, that leads into an automation conversation. But and then also with escalating labor, automation helps with that as well. So we're having more and more conversations around automation and automation roadmaps for customers that want a sustainable long-term solution to keep costs from going on the roller coaster and keep them on a steady incline that they can forecast and predict around.
I was actually going to ask that in terms of automation. Obviously, that's a major moving force in warehousing at this particular point. We got about a minute left here. Is that contributing as well to this cost increase because of the fact that warehouse owners have to make these purchases that are not small and not cheap?
Yeah, larger companies are really starting to make an investment into automation, and it's not all at once. It's bits and pieces here and there, and that's because the automation industry and automation software is so young. There's so much room for improvement, cost reduction across automation efficiencies, and things that are coming down the pipe that companies have to be ready for. So I think, in answer to your question, well, I guess what we're trying to do is put together automation roadmaps and help customers understand kind of where they can reduce costs by taking advantage of automation to address longer moves throughout the warehouse, repetitive moves, things that are easy to eliminate some bodies for.
Gotcha there. Real quick, as we got to go, give me the final score of the Super Bowl.
Oh, man. 35-27 Chiefs.
I knew it had to be KC. Joe, thanks so much for joining us.
Thanks for having me.
All right, Joe Oliaro, VP of Sales and Chief Real Estate Officer for Wagner Logistics. We'll take a short break and be back right after this.